Ladies and gentlemen, Rob Talbert of Jagged Tune. This is his first full-length book of poetry from MadHat Press, released Thursday night in Tallahassee, and now in Atlanta on Saturday night. Inspired by his life growing up in the sweltering heat of San Antonio, where he spent most of his nights playing in bands or dancing in nightclubs. He's worked in jails, bars, corporate offices, hotels, universities, hospitals, retail stores, restaurants, and on cruise ships, which Thursday he claimed was all at the same time, experiences that informed his blue-collar, transgressive writing style. In 2010, he received his MFA degree in creative writing from Virginia Tech, and now teaches at Florida State University, where he's currently working on his PhD. And his poems have appeared in places like Alaska Quarterly, the American Poetry Review, Ninth Letter, Painted Bright Quarterly, and Rattle. Rob?
So I haven't been in Atlanta very long, just a few days, but whenever I was driving here, there was a lot of traffic. And I mean, I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and they get a lot of, we get a lot of traffic there too, but my wife, she starts looking up the things that are going on in Atlanta, and tonight, like tonight, Billy Joel is performing, Lewis Black is performing, there's motocross, there's monster trucks, there's a fair called Bourbon, Barbecue, and Beer, and all of you are here, which it makes me feel really good, but it's incredible what we have to go up against when all of that is going on tonight. It's impressive. But I am from San Antonio, and my father never made it past an 8th grade education. He was a construction worker for a while, and then he became a police officer. And my mother has been a housewife all her life. So that was sort of the home I grew up in. And, after class after class after class and book after book after book, there sort of became a certain moment when I had to kind of reconcile the kind of work that my parents and my friends were doing and said was worth something, and the kind of work the kind of work I'm doing now, and the meaning of that kind of work. And I found myself, whenever I was washing dishes or whenever I was working security for hotels or bars, I had to kind of had to reconcile a certain level of this. Work as an idea is fine, but do we have to take everything to extremes? You have a worker and there's this idea of a person attached to it, and you have this finite time that you're given on this earth, and you have to give a sliver of that to this process. And when you think about, just for example, the human heart beating once a second, for example, once a second. What is that an hour? Like 3,600 beats an hour. And if you get paid $9 an hour, that's 3,600 heartbeats that are worth $9. And this is the kind of thought that's like coming into my head when I'm dropping the fries into the grease. So, announcements. Attention customers. The store will close in 15 minutes. Sooner or later, we will all return home. We close tonight because all things end. A song, an empire, most love. This sentence ends. Do not mistake this for proof of God. Do not look the employees in the eye. Some have been hit by a hurricane of dreams. You're staring, your small talk. Remind them that the cement around their ankles is drying, that 1 trillion heartbeats have come and gone. Minimum wage is a deeply planted knife. Beeping registers haunt us in our sleep. Attention customers, please make your final selections and bring them to the front for purchase. This goes for lost children, the penniless, the heartbroken, shoplifters, the man in aisle 9 exposing himself to his girlfriend. What we do in our own minds is a dark carnival of mirrors and sharp candy, hidden rampage where the fire burns hottest. I have devastating friends and family. I have no right to my anger, paralysis, starvation, no desolate landscape to contend with. But you drive safe. Take care. Never forget the promises that you made to yourself. Advice like that is safe. Most of the things on our shelves can kill. The supervisors, the lovers, the criminals, and the lost. There was a time when I was the supervisor of a bookstore and my wife was the supervisor of a Hot Topic. And we got off at the precise same time, but we were on opposite sides of the city. So it made for an interesting communication. I start drinking in the office while counting down the day's registers, texting you about a customer who yelled about his expired coupons and has now gone home to sleep away the stars. On the other side of town, you start counting down your registers between swigs of pineapple vodka and Red Bull. It takes practice to get good at changing clothes in a car. To make second nature the backpack of deodorant, mouthwash, the last ounces of youth, amnesia, Chuck Taylors in a full flask. I am still growing into my hands. I dream of a carnival inside the night hours, our bed, our conversations of work, at work, in the car, outside of this nightclub. I steal dinner for us before locking up. You reveal $18 from a safe we can use to buy drinks. What are we at war with? Our friends left and the city stopped singing, and our parents never leave the house. And this parking lot grows more empty each month. We talk. We talk in the bank vault darkness, in the American forest. We talk in the glacial glow of a car radio, burning like a vigil and lighting the way. So the French decadent poet Stéphanie Mallarmé, who was productive in the later half of the 19th century, wrote a poem called The Roll of the Dice. And it was, from what I can tell, one of the first attempts at the typographical manipulation of words upon the page. It kind of seems like the first spatial, where the order and structure of the words on the page is supposed to reflect the subject and the theme of the poem itself, the way that maybe a poem about time is in the shape of an hourglass, as an example. And as a roll of the dice, it was scattered, and and it sort of breaks up the linear reception of the reading. So you can kind of choose to read it in a vertical fashion or in a linear fashion, or you can even go diagonal in a way. And you know, because it was written in the same state of consciousness, there's kind of a pattern that appears there. It can kind of be accepted in that form. And this being sort of, you know, just on the very early dawn of French sign-signified theory and language, it was kind of one of the grounding works that the modernists and the Dadaists and the futurists would soon take and incorporate into their own movements. But Mallarmé was looking for a pure aesthetic of language. He was trying to divest himself as a person, as a feeling being, from the language he was using, in order for that his language to go on as a pure aesthetic. I mean, this is the time of decadence. You know, this is post-Baudelaire. And by doing that, it's very Kantian. It is sort of like when Kant said, in order to objectively see the beauty, one must be disinterested in it. You can't desire the beautiful. In order to really perceive the beautiful, you have to not even want it in order to say that it's beautiful, which I don't fucking understand. You know, he said that if you desire it and it's being your wife, she's just agreeable. Right. Yeah, good fucking luck. Yeah. Kant and I could have some conversations about that. But anyway, the last line of Mallarmé's poem, which I find running over and over in my head, is, all thoughts emit a roll of the dice, which is, the title of the poem, The Roll of the Dice. And it's not just about rolling dice, it's about the fact that thoughts, when you think of something and you're trying to get that concept, you're essentially rolling the dice that you have the ability to understand what you're thinking about. And see, so my mind goes with that. All thoughts emit a roll of the dice. Human beings as thinking creatures, I mean, if you're rolling the dice with every thought, does this include memory? Like if we are a composite of all of our experiences, there's got to be some things that we remember wrong, or not at all. And if a memory is a thought, and if a thought is a roll of the dice, sometimes those rolls have to come up bust. But that's who we are. So there was this bar in San Antonio that I would frequent very often, and I've walked to this bar a number of times, and sometimes I took a cab. And I was always passing by a mall, and depending on the day or the time, sometimes the mall was closed, sometimes it was open. And I have all these different memories of all these different times that I took this same path to the same place. And forgive me, I can't do any, Duchamp's new descending staircase, you look at it and it's there and it's one scene, but this is language, so I can't do anything but give it to you linearly. But this is all the times I walked to this bar and the different experiences. Method. I took a cab down Commerce Street. I took a cab and walked down from the mall. There's a cover at Citrus. I took a cab and the mall was closing. Down Commerce Street, I paid a cover. I waved at a cab, but it didn't stop. The street lit up like a satin ribbon. Citrus was lit like a commerce of satin. Her dress reigned in the land of small shoulders. Her dress was caught in the cab drawer. I walked to Citrus where there wasn't a cover. The mall was dark, like a box of unbought things. A ribbon went around my wrist. A cab turned around on Commerce Street. I walked to Citrus and the street was closing. The sky was dark like a closed mall. The sky was a cab door shut on a dress. Her hips moved like ribbon blown into the street. I drank from the mall of lit bottles. The world will never end. Certainty without using the word certainty. A man approaches a bar. This is a sentence. His movements and desires for rum. Each step met with a new word. And how many people watch him defines the reign of what to call it. A man approaches the bar and creates a storm. I hold avocados in a market, and I am rephrased by other shoppers as a man wishing he'd stayed in Tijuana. I often wish I'd stayed in Tijuana. A man approaches the bar, and he doesn't need this moment explained. Perhaps the shunning of better language is just another way that we are polite in public. The inaccuracy is intentional. And I was like, see that guy? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, man, I bet he's going through some stuff. I don't need the word drink to reach for one, nor lust to be delirious about a woman's hips, but perfect and careen and lever that moves the world are fine substitutions for both. When we rolled around in the night South Dakota grass, that lost faraway girl must solicit other words for rolling around in the night South Dakota grass. Her hands a different direction and size than mine, her direction and size to win alternate to my own. The memory is never mindful of its palace or its place, depending on your affinity for the letter A. After all, if only the right memories and sentences stuck around, all our heads would be a Taj Mahal, which was also built for a lost faraway girl. A man approaches the bar, and I build a palace in my head. And I was like, man, this guy must have been really hurt when she died. And he was like, yeah. Accountability. It rains and then it stops. Then it rains and then it stops. When I think of a storm, I think persistence. Alive is rumor. But the storm outside is not my definition, stopping and starting and stopping again, like a prowling animal with broken instincts. If I don't know a storm, what else have I defined too narrowly, too quickly, judged, wrong? Which people do I remember? Not at all. How I prefer the world made bearable. I was in love once. That's a lie I tell myself over the fence of my own body to wash away the million times I did love into a context that I can handle. And I lie about being okay with my life so far and so much that my wife is concerned about my drinking. Some days the morning sun slams into the hills so brilliantly I think the land might sing. But then someone lays on their car horn outside and I listen to that instead. Cutting away seems to be a form of survival, a way of coloring within the lines. Otherwise, there's no way for anything. I stop here. I start here. And once, true story, in Bermuda, I discovered my own name carved into a church. So, I generally have a morbid sense of humor. And I hear stories about people being on cruise ships and being on vacation. And something happens where they're on vacation and they're parasailing and then they break their arm or something. And my mind always goes to that moment where they think, yeah, I'm going to go have fun. And the exact opposite happens. And in a way, it's kind of funny. The proverbial slipping on a banana peel as the quintessential classic joke. It's a person getting hurt. I have slipped on a banana peel. They eat it, you know. So what is that? What is the humor behind the human frailty? And there are theorists who claim that when someone slips on a banana peel or whatever it is, seeing that is a subconscious reminder of our own mortality. And that, you know, we say, well, I'm going to wake up at this time and I'm going to go to this place and I'm going to work this job and I'm not going to get a flat tire. You know, and I'm going to look great because I got my hair cut or whatever. But then, you know, these forces that we seem to deem as otherworldly and omniscient, they stop us, you know. And realizing that, we have a subconscious reaction and we laugh. And that's where that comes from. So, thinking of that, so stop me if you've heard this one. A German couple at a national park takes a selfie at the edge of a cliff. Wait, let me start over. An inmate breaks out of a Portland jail 6 days before his release. Here's where the turn goes. Where the turn goes, banking over the foamy grasp of the wave, or the punchline of the river's ripple flatlining on the bank. I am trying to save myself from my credit cards, from boredom, my thirst, the mental walks I take in serious conversation, often thinking of actual walks across Spain where I don't know anyone, or the language, or the customs, but yet I would go and not even question control. My best friend Jacob had it all figured out at 18 years old. How to be an electrician until the bullet in Qatar caught his brainstem. I was supposed to have conquered whole realms by now, but years swept past me like an off-duty taxi. Why am I the one and not Jacob with an orange tree clustering up the backyard with sunsets? Life isn't a punchline. Life is the joke leading up to the punchline. The priest and the parrot just standing in the bar wondering what to do. The guest at the door who knocked and waits for a voice to tell him what to do next. The German couple fell to their deaths and their daughter watched. The feds caught the inmate and they extended his sentence. Wait. I've got one for you. You'll want to tell all your friends who didn't end up dead. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
God.
God who?
Exactly. Cherries becoming more like cherries. Listen. The space you take up opens, inhales, slow like a praying monk at high altitude, balloons, becomes a vow with flesh pooling out from the center, and oh, without a pit and ready for the tongue. Speak a name, any name, and unleash fruit. Sweet as a body moving toward its collar. Be especially on the asthmatics. Their lives depend on every yes. My life depends on night. The difference between she and I. How easier a time the wind has with her. With the windows down, the tangle of roads tracing every place skin flies, above abrasion, above the legal posted speed limit. And the road is more than just a blur of mile markers and grass, is for an instant relevant. The Pacific is relevant because it can be reached, entered, occupied, and made more. You are more right here and right here. You are more than gravity because gravity has no body, has nothing to take its shape. Gravity is kissless. Gravity will never call you for drinks. Even the dead have shape. But gravity only tugs on cherries, on your feet while the car banks too fast on the turnpike. If you've ever driven far enough from a city, then the largest O you've ever seen is the arm of the galaxy, smooth and patient, a midnight of presence, the miracle of enough time. There is always an hour ready to hold you. Like this one, a place in the room for refuge, molding all movements and memory. This exactly. What has become of you? And on the notion of laughter, The Laughing Heart by Charles Bukowski. Your life is your life. Don't let it get clubbed into dank submission. Be on the watch. There are ways out. There is a light somewhere. It may not be much light, but it beats the darkness. Be on the watch. The gods will offer you chances. Know them. Take them. You can't beat death, but you can beat death in life sometimes. And the more you learn to do it, the more light there will be. Your life is your life. Know it while you have it. You are marvelous. The gods wait to delight.